So we're here with another one of our YDA interviews, and I'm thrilled to be sitting with, sitting facing the computer of Samantha Scaffidi, who is a director based in New York, I do believe, whose incredible film Wait for Rain won a gold at the YDA. Samantha, thank you so much for joining us here.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
No. I mean, as I mentioned to you sort of pre-chat, I'm a huge fan of this film. I thought this was stunning. I really, really think it's a phenomenal film. So congratulations for that in the first place, and congratulations for the win. I'm curious, we're going to talk about the film a little bit as we go along, but to begin with, I'd just love to know, what brought you into filmmaking, what put you behind the camera, what sort of started that bug for you?
Oof. Long story short of that, I started as an actor, and then I was acting in the city. I had gone to conservatory, and I started learning how to produce because acting was it was just challenging to get a role. So you just start to learn the producing process to sort of give yourself opportunities. And then, oddly enough, I think I started having these set of skills where I'd be able to go and kind of make my own films. And then on the side, I would just start to, I was writing and I didn't realize I was writing. And then I built a network. So it was all these things were happening. I wasn't completely conscious of it. And then one day it was like the Women's March on Washington. And I remember, saying to my friend who's a cinematographer, Allison Anderson, I was like, do you want to go? Do you want to be a part of history? And also just try to find a voice in the whole kind of thing. And so that was the first, and then that was it caught fire, and it was just kind of okay, let's just make things on the side while I pursue these other really serious, vocations. And then, then Smuggler had seen a music video that I had made and kind of called me in, and that was kind of the time where I was like, oh, there may be a career in this. This maybe, and I guess all the things I've been doing for the past couple of years kind of come all together in this one vocation. It's a long story short. Yeah.
Not a bad company to sort of kick off your career at as well, Smuggler.
Wild.
So, talking about the project itself, the Rain project, how did you get involved with that? Had you been in conversations with the charity? Was it just something that came up for pitching?
No, it was something that I had written. So that story is a story that when I was in my early 20s, I had experienced with a friend of mine where they asked me to come to the hospital with them. So it was something where I was actually there witnessing kind of the event. And I had it written. So when I had, was in talks with Smuggler, we were talking about, what's next. And I kind of had presented a few scripts, and that was one of them. And so we kind of went out and made it, and, Droga became involved, Rain became involved, and it became this, this project that we all kind of committed to and saw to the end. So it was a script that I had written, and then kind of we brought people in.
Oh, cool. So you sort of the the charity, I'm guessing when you started speaking to them, did they or the agency have a lot of input into how the script sort of developed, or is this the sort of film that you'd initially written and then it worked with what they were trying to say?
Yeah, it was a script I had originally written, but I didn't really understand. You go through an experience like that, and you don't necessarily understand what happened and why we were in those circumstances of waiting in a hospital. And then when Droga and Rain got involved, it just they were the ones who found the context. They understood, what that event was, what had happened. And so they really helped define and shape how, we could take a film like that and make it proactive and useful so that we could actually help people in the process of storytelling. So it's this kind of beautiful marrying of all these different, the charity coming in and Droga finding the life, But it was.
It's a heartbreaking film, really, especially when it's established what we're watching and the experience of the character. And I think a lot of that is brought forward from the performance of the actress. So how did you sort of develop that performance with her? And also, did your sort of background in acting, do you feel like that sort of helped you in sort of communicating?
Oh yeah, it's wild because I was on set with Christine Spang, who's the amazing actress. She just, first of all, she just destroyed the audition. She was just so powerful to a point where there were so many talented individuals who had auditioned, and it just nothing like Christine. So it was like just having her off the bat, even if I had no directing skills whatsoever with actors, like it would have been a phenomenal performance. But in I think having the acting background, I remember as an actor being on set and, timing of the days, it's always kind of like you can always, a lot of people leave that off to the end. It's like they've taken, like I was always taught when you break down a script as a producer, like depending on what the scene is, if it's super emotional, you want to pad that because you want to give your actors time to if they need to go for 30 minutes and get into their space, give them 30 minutes. Some of them can do it in 2 seconds, but you always have to kind of account for time if production allows. So also I think for me, film's like moment to moment. So that performance, it's over. It's supposed to be 10 hours condensed into like a 2-minute film, 2-3-minute film. So you have to kind of, for me, I was like, I'm going to break it up. And there's an arc. It's, she's not going to start off super emotional. So, and actors and human beings can't continue to go into emotions constantly. There's a point where they're just going to exhaust themselves. So I would, talk to the AD and I'd say like, well, can we structure the day so that, at the beginning, I'm having Christine do more technical stuff, right? I would talk to Christine and say, look, I don't need you to perform. I don't need you to get emotional. We don't need to go there yet. Can you look here? Can you do that? Can you do this? And I would speak to her, and then by the end of the day, when it was time to do the major kind of like breakthrough, then that's when, I was like, okay, it's time to go there. And then as a former actor, I was able to kind of role play with her. It's that thing where she's alone in the scene, but, I asked Christine, I said, well, what do you need from me? And then she said, well, like one of our secrets was, she said, it would be really helpful if you could ask me questions. So then my Maseo, who's my cinematographer, who's amazing, would have everything kind of ready and going. And so I'd like sit in with her and I would whisper and I'd ask her questions and we'd engage as if, I was someone in the scene with her. And then, it'd set her off and then I'd get up and then all of a sudden we'd start shooting. So it was really cool. It was like, oh, acting is super useful.
A little bit emotional just telling me that. That was quite, that sounds like quite an intense experience on set. But
it was profound in a lot of ways because you're like, it was also kind of fun because you're like, you get to perform with. It's just like, yeah. And then that's, I think, when you can find, even obviously though acting is like, living truthfully under imaginary circumstances is the Meisner thing. It's like we're lying, but like when you go there with someone, it can create these what feel like real moments, and then that I think allows people to watch. So yeah.
Well, I mean, one of the things that really struck me with the film, and I refer to it as a film more than like a commercial, even though it does obviously have this charity connection. It's got bravery in sort of lingering on shots, and admittedly there are moments where the pace picks up and the edit really sort of kicks in, especially with the sound design. Yeah. But were there any discussions about the length of time like a certain shot would last, or how long you could linger in a it's still quite a condensed tale?
Yeah, it definitely it morphed over time because I think when I first went into it, it was like, we're making a commercial or a PSA, and, ideally we were like, okay, well, especially because, I was a new director at the time. So I needed like, more spots, for my reel. So we're like trying to fit in the 30-60 second thing. And I think over time through discussions and the magic of filmmaking, and you start to realize how important the story is and that you got to just kind of allow it to live under the time that it's meant to live under. So in terms of like for me, just the motivation behind the shots and determining time is more of just, we're in her experience with her. So whatever state that she's in, we're with her. So if she's internal, we're with her. We're not leaving her. We don't see anything else. The only time we ever see anything is, if Christine sees it. So we're basically in her experience. And then, so for like, I think there was like the one push in that we linger on her long enough. At one point, I think that was a little longer. I was like stretching that out to be like 30, 40 seconds. And then at some point I had like a note that was like, we could probably cut it down. And I'm like, oh, and then it ended up working. So like that was like, we, in the edit, we kind of like were, okay, we can like cut it down just a little bit. So it's not like a 6-minute film. But yeah, a lot of it was just like intuitive and, and trying to like put yourself in that position of being like, and also, like I said, the passage of time, sorry, I'm like going all over the place, but for me, it's like, when we were pushing in at one moment, I was like, it needs to be long enough that we feel there's a passage of time so that when we do change all of a sudden, like it's a different day, it's there's shifts. But a lot of it was, intuitive, I think. I mean, the shot design was very specific in terms of this to this to this to this. And we mapped it out and it pretty much kept to that. But in terms of timing of the shots, the push-ins, that was just trying to be in the edit with my editor, Stefania, who's, an amazing editor. She was just us being intuitive and trying to feel them out, the pacing.
Well, speaking of the edit, I mean, the edit and the sound design, they're incredible in the film as well. I mean, not saying anything about the direction and the cinematography, but it really sort of makes the piece. So how involved were you in that sort of process, and what was your input, and what was brought in by the people you were working with?
Well, so I was very, very lucky to have like amazing talent involved. So like sound design, like Q department, I mean, that was like a gift because they completely made that. Because for me, like in the script, it was written and we always said half of the film at least, the intention was going to be a lot of sound design because there's so many shifts. Because I mean, for me, like film is like all the subtleties. So you may not notice, but like we've been mapping it out, with Q department, which is like you 10-hour day and you're in a New York City hospital. The sounds shift through the morning, through the afternoon. It can go from like being super quiet, not as many people in the environment, to all of a sudden it's rush hour and there's just like a lot more. And so we were able to get as detailed as that and kind of like map that out very specifically, where hopefully like the audience doesn't necessarily know that, but they're experiencing it.
Yeah.
And so that was like, that became its own, and very lucky to have them involved. And then, Stefania as my editor, me and her have like, she's like my editor, we're like a team. So it was us getting in there and, and her kind of bringing her, skills to the table and where I want to keep a shot longer and when I want to do this, to do that. And she's like, she uses her intuition and her skill set to kind of, keep me in check, but also, it becomes like a dance that we do. So that's, I guess, the
cool. Well, I mean, it's a resounding success, obviously, and not just me saying that. That's the jury panel of the YDAs. So I guess, I mean, what was it like winning the YDA? What was it like picking up that gold?
It feels like, I feel like that like someone has to pinch me, because it's this thing where it's like it was like the first real film I had made I had made like a PSA before, but like at this like kind of level with this company, and I've had so much support, like where it's just to get recognized and them to see all the hard work that we put in, because it really was a labor of love and everyone gave everything that they had to make that film. Like, it's like that alone has just felt really beautiful to experience. But it's like pinching yourself, because then there's also the level where you're like extremely grateful, because it just means more people are going to see it and more people are going to learn about, these circumstances that the film is speaking to. So I was extremely blown away and extremely shocked, was not expecting it. And it's just, so I'm forever grateful and just humbled by it, I think. But
well, we've got to talk about, the past 6 months, the lockdown, the COVID and everything like that. How's it been for you? Have you been able to sort of carry on with work? I mean, what's on the horizon for you at the moment?
So I would say the first few months, like everyone, it was kind of like, what's happening, slow down, and, work was less, trying to, and not many people were, well, they weren't going out and filming and whatnot. So I kind of used that time to finish some films, to basically write, because I was like, I think you can only do the best you can with the circumstances you're under. But I was like, there's so many things that I've long form that I've been trying to write. So I was like, I'm just going to take advantage of this time. Try to like stay sane, but also just like do all the things that I may not get to do for a while. But like recently, now it's starting to pick up, and I have a few films on the docket that are like greenlit and slowly pushing through. So I'm just like head down and doing that. But it's been good. I mean, I try to. I don't get too stressed when I kind of go with the flow. It's like, I think things happen for a reason. So I was like, okay, if, work's not kind of completely coming through right now, especially because newer director, it's like, I'm going to, like I said, write and figure out all the other things and prepare myself for when I think the gates open, and then you don't stop for about, a year. So.
Well, cool. Well, we're excited about seeing what you bring out next. So I'll thank you so much for your time today. Really lovely chat.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay. See you later.
Bye.